Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The treatment and internment of Japanese Americans during World War II was a cruel violation of their rights. The United States government did not have the right, despite the hysteria present, to treat Japanese Americans the way they did. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. entered World War II and went to war with Japan. 1 year later, in February 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which forced Japanese American families living on the West Coast to leave their friends, jobs, and schools and move inland. Farewell Manzanar, an autobiography, chronicles Jan Wakasu's life before, during, and after her time at an internment camp in California. She vividly remembers her mother trying to sell their family's priceless heirloom china before being forced to move yet again. He watched her for a moment and said he was sure he couldn't pay more than $17.50 for that china. She reached into the red velvet case, took out a dinner plate, and hurled it at the floor right in front of his feet. Mama took out another dinner plate and hurled it at the floor, then another and another, never moving, never opening her mouth, just quivering and glaring at the retreating dealer, with tears streaming down her cheeks. He finally turned and scuttled out the door, heading for the next house. When he was gone, she stood there smashing cups and bowls and platters until the whole set lay in scattered blue and white fragments across the wooden floor. Eventually, a total of 100,000 people were forced to relocate to one of 10 internment camps spread out across California, Colorado, Idaho, Arizona, Arkansas, Wyoming, and Utah. Approximately 34 years after President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 on February 19, 1967, President Gerald Ford signed Proclamation number 4417, which stated, "We know now what we should have known then. Not only was that evacuation wrong, but Japanese Americans were and are loyal Americans. I call upon the American people to affirm with me this American promise, that we have learned from the tragedy of that long ago experience forever to treasure liberty and justice for each individual American, and resolve that this kind of action shall never again be repeated." When they arrived at the camps, internees were treated like animals and were met by subliminal living conditions. Barracks were hastily made dirty and cramped. Entire families had to share one-room cells with minimal privacy. In her novel, Wakasu describes her family's living conditions. The shacks were built of one thickness of pine planking covered with tar paper. They sat on concrete footings with about 2 feet of open space between the floorboards and the ground. Gaps showed between the planks, and as the weeks passed and the green wood dried out, the gaps widened. Knotholes gaped in the uncovered floor. Each barrack was divided into 6 units 16 by 20 feet, about the size of a living room, with one spare bulb hanging from the ceiling and an oil stove for heat. We were assigned 2 of these for the 12 people in our family group. Wakasu also explained how Japanese culture was disrespected during internment. They issued us army mess kits, the round metal kind that fold over, and plopped in scoops of canned Vienna sausage, canned string beans, steamed rice that had been cooked too long, and on top of the rice a serving of canned apricots. The Caucasian servers were thinking that the fruit poured over the rice would make a good dessert. Among the Japanese, of course, rice is never eaten with sweet foods, only with salty or savory foods. Few of us could eat such a mixture. Outside of internment camps, Japanese Americans were fighting for the United States. Unfortunately, they still face extreme discrimination, and many believe they were still loyal to Japan. Even after being released from internment camps, Japanese Americans were still treated with extreme racism. Although the government no longer viewed them as a threat, they were still looked down upon greatly by society.